Bawumia has been elected as leader and flag bearer of the NPP. Whatever he has done in the past has been in support of His Excellency, the President, achieve the vision he had when he set out to rule this country. Now, as leader, people would want to know, to hear from him what he envisages and what he plans to do with the presidency if it comes into his hands. And so this was an opportunity for the country to hear from him as leader of the NPP and not as vice president.
As an independent person from the president.
As an independent person from the president. Especially so when he has been part of this administration over the last 7 years. For instance, when we came into office, you did not have free SHS. So even Akufo-Addo government had underpinning all their policies, the free SHS. You don't expect in 2025, when Dr. Bawumia assumes office, to come and tell you, I'll be the main driver for my government will be free SHS, which exists already. And that is why you can see some clear shift. The government has done a whole lot of things over the last 7 to 8 years by the time he comes in, and how he's going to leverage that and build upon that. That is what the speech was about.
I see. Now, judging from the public reaction or response from the general public after the speech, do you think that this bold vision speech has achieved what it was designed to achieve? What's your personal assessment of the speech and public reaction after?
Well, even during the speech, I happened to sit in the public gallery, if I should use that phrase, which is the very topmost section of the auditorium, and I could feel the excitement in the general public.
But of course, you have party members and party faithfuls in the auditorium.
It wasn't only party faithfuls who were there. The general public was. I saw a group of young law students still in their, if I should say, uniform. And when he mentioned the need to expand the law school and medical school facilities, they actually got off their feet and were shouting. So the excitement during the presentation, I saw that. And since then, I've also had opportunity to engage people and listen to their views. Of course, there are those who, it won't matter what he said, already have a preset mind that we will not support the cause of Bawumia or the NPP. And for that matter, whatever he would have said, he would have criticized. But there are also those who have an open mind and received these messages very well. I've seen different identifiable groups like the Abosiokai people, the Guta. A number of these entities have come out issuing statements, commending him and supporting what priorities and policies that he put out.
Have you seen some of the messages and concerns from people who do not support some of the things that he said?
I have heard some people who are criticizing some of the things he said. Some are even putting a twist on it to let it seem like he is trying to run away from the decisions and, as it were, achievements of the Akufo-Addo administration.
You don't feel that way?
Not at all.
All right. Perhaps you could explain to us. For example, on the issue of taxation, he has said that he was going to abolish some of the taxes, taxing on bet, emissions levy, e-levy, and so on. Has he always been against these taxes, or is this a new development?
If you listen carefully to Dr. Bawumia's address, you will realize that it is not a matter of whether he has been against something and is now coming out to say it or not. No, he lays the foundation to explain what necessitated the current situation. He tells you that when he becomes president, he's moving so much into the electronic space, the digital space. And for that matter, it will not make sense to continue to have e-levy on our books because you're trying to encourage people to be cashless, to want to use mobile money platforms all over the place. So at that point, it will make sense to be taxing people when they do so.
But the digitalization agenda is not a new one. It will not be a new one for his government should he become president. it has been an agenda of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as well. So if the government thought it prudent to introduce e-levy during this administration, why is it suddenly such a bad idea for his administration should he become president?
It is not just the digitalization, but the movement of all services onto that platform. That is the issue. He spoke about Ghana.gov and how e-government is expanding and increasing. He mentioned how they've onboarded currently over 99% of all the MDAs, the ministries, departments, and agencies onto this platform. And so it is expected that by the time he assumes office, if you want some service from his assembly, from a ministry, from a department, you're not going to walk from here to that office. You can sit in the comfort of your home or office and do business and a transaction with it. And to encourage you do that, he will take e-levy. He will make sure that you can do this without paying taxes.
Has Dr. Bawumia ever been against the e-levy?
Has Dr. Bawumia ever spoken for the e-levy?
Yes.
When?
He has never spoken for the e-levy.
I'm asking you.
Are you saying he's never spoken for the e-levy?
I'm asking you. I haven't heard him speak for or against e-levy.
Was he instrumental in the implementation of the e-levy?
What I know is that prior to the introduction of e-levy, he did make a statement that it will not make sense to have to tax this kind of platform, that is the payments over digital systems. He made that statement because he mentioned then about the need to protect the vulnerable, who he thought digitalization was trying to expand the financial inclusion by bringing all of them on board. He has made that statement before. But in terms of explicitly speaking for or against e-levy, during the period that it was being introduced up until now that he spoke, I don't know if you can show me a statement.
Has he been instrumental in the implementation?
I don't know that. I have seen statements attributed to Kojo Nkrumah saying that Dr. Bawumia was instrumental in the passage of or the formulation of e-levy policy. But I have also seen Nkrumah come out to deny that he even ever said that. But put that aside, whether he said that or he did not say that, today he's here and is explaining to you why, when he is president, he will remove e-levy altogether from our books. That, for me, is more important than whether he believes in e-levy today or not. He has already told us that, given the current situation of government, there's a whole bunch of taxes that government had to introduce, for which by his time, he's sure there will be no need for them to remain on the books. What did he even talk about? The emissions tax, that if it is still on the books, for him to make that statement, to tell us that there is even consideration already to take it off our books. So I don't think that...
Did he advise the president?
Of course, he is his vice president.
Implementing these taxes at the time.
Which specific tax?
So, for example, the e-levy, which you have just said that he had reservations about in the beginning.
Yes.
Did he advise the president not to implement?
I wouldn't know that explicitly, but I know that the EMT does provide advice to cabinet, whose job it is to advise the president. So as a head of a committee within cabinet, I'm sure his own views will come to bear on the committee's position on matters. But as we've all heard before, all these decisions, eventually, they are the prerogative of the president. And Dr. Bawumia has said on several platforms that he's not here to dissociate himself from any decision of government. It is a collective decision. It's a collective responsibility. That is how governance works. You can have your say in cabinet. You can have your say at committee, even in parliament on committee levels. We have disagreements over some of these issues. But once the committee report comes, and it comes not as a majority report, when it gets on the floor, we all do contribute towards that, the presentation of the report and advancing arguments why the plenary should support that and pass it. Although you may have some little disagreements here and there, you can always find space to support the good aspects of it.
The good aspects.
I would not be surprised, for instance, if, as has been said elsewhere, that Dr. Bawumia, when E-Levy was still going, said then maybe make sure that there's a safety net for the vulnerable by putting some... I've heard some people advance that argument. Whether it's true or not, I can't tell you.
I see. You mentioned the bits about him as the head of the economic management team merely advising the president. And that's one of the key points in his speech that has attracted a lot of criticism, or if you like, even ridicule. It seems, or it would seem from listening to him explain his role and the role of the economic management team, that Dr. Bawumia was trying to insulate himself from some of the unpopular decisions of the government. However, he seems ready to take glory for the things that he believes have worked out well. For example, the digitalization agenda. Why does he feel that, or why does he feel the need now to mention that he's merely advising? Why have we not heard this?
I don't think, Doctor, I'm sure the emphasis is yours, the merely. I don't think he ever said merely.
No, he said the role of the economic management team is to
position the role of the EMT properly. Because when you listen to the arguments being advanced in the public space, it would seem that we don't even have a finance minister who acts on behalf of the president, and that it is the prerogative of the EMT to decide policies concerning finance and economic planning in the country. So he positioned the EMT properly for everybody to understand the role. And there's nothing wrong with that. What is cabinet really? Cabinet is a body the government or the president has put in place, prescribed by the constitution, to advise him on issues. When we are in parliament, there are two types of documents that come from the executive to the legislature. And you may have the document saying that this one is by a decision of cabinet.
Okay.
So cabinet has approved this for the constitution of parliament. Sometimes we get what we call executive approval. Why is it so? The president can take a decision based on the advice of cabinet. Or he can decide that on this matter, I don't want to hear from cabinet. Or even though cabinet has said this, I still want to go this way. So he can write to parliament and say, with executive approval, I want you to consider this matter for me. When that comes to parliament, what parliament does is look at two things.
Okay.
Because it is not cabinet, if it requires that he gets legal advice, parliament wants to see that the Attorney General has separately given his concurrence to this. If it is something to do with finance, we want to see, and let's say it has, multi-year implications. So it's a decision that could affect more than 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. It can hit our finances. Then, according to the Public Financial Management Act, you need a concurrence of the Minister for Finance. So if it's an executive decision, then Parliament will look at whether you have these two concurrences. And then we'll proceed. We don't need for it to have come from cabinet. What that means then is, even if an EMT, which is the committee of cabinet, has advised cabinet in a way to advise the president, that advice will be lost.
Okay.
So Dr. Bawumia only said, listen, you talk so much about I'm head of economic management team, but this is where we are. I'm not saying I agree with the president's decision, I'm dissociating myself with it, but to put it into perspective, this is what an EMT is. Don't let an EMT become a body in your mind that is so superior to cabinet or a ministry or anything. No. It is an advisory body to an advisory body to the president.
When Dr. Bawumia was made head of the economic management team, certain promises were made to Ghanaians. Certain assurances were given us because of his background and the knowledge he has in economic management and finance. He was going to help us move from where we are to where we want to be, moving the economy from taxation to production and so on. On the back of all these promises and statements, do you think it's out of place for Ghanaians to expect that as head of the economic management team, he would at least admit the role that he and his team have played in all of the economic woes and hardships that Ghanaians are facing right now?
I don't think Dr. Bawumia is running away from that at all. In his speech, he sets out right from the onset to tell you his role, what he did. So if it is whether he's done well or not, you can measure that by what he did. He tells you how the Minister for Finance was responsible for the budget, that's fiscal policy. He tells you how the Bank of Ghana, was responsible for the monetary and exchange rate policy, and how he was given a responsibility to take care of the systems that will support this to take us to where we are. That is how he then launches on to tell you about how he went about to use digitalization to take Ghana to where we are currently. And then he espouses all the things that he's done in the digitalization space. So clearly, he didn't seek to say that I wasn't part of government, but even in government, there are roles assigned to people.
Does he take responsibility for? Does Dr. Bawumia take responsibility for any part he might have played in the current economic woes that Ghanaians face?
Dr. Bawumia has set out for you to look at the roles everybody played. In any case, we can have a whole discussion on where Ghana is today economically. And I don't think that we live on some oasis. We are part of the Committee of Nations, which has broadly been affected by the double whammy of COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine impasse, plus our own internal additional double whammy of the financial sector cleanup and the take-or-pay issues with the IPPs. What it is, are things happening differently in other countries in this world than Ghana? Have you seen what the economic indicators in Europe, in the Americas are, from some of them less than 1% to now around 8, 7, 6% in terms of inflation? GDP growth rates that we've experienced post-COVID, is it the same as in other places? Is it comparable? What was this government's own record from 2017 to 2020, pre-COVID? How did it look like? It is important that we look at all these truths and accept it to ourselves. When you go to Rwanda, they have two truisms there. One, don't deny that there was genocide. And two, do not promote genocide. Is it true that we had COVID-19? It is true. What was the impact of COVID-19 on the world? It brought the world to its knees. In fact, it's been described as the biggest recession since the 1930s, economic recession that the world has seen. So for anybody to make an argument and try to isolate Ghana as if we live on some island, we are not part of the world. And so you go to the US, for the first time, you have supermarkets where you can't find some items on the shelves. Go to Nigeria, a leading producer of oil, they are queuing to buy oil. In Ghana, notwithstanding all these challenges that we've had, you don't queue to buy fuel, your lights are still on. Have you heard anybody at the end of the month say we can't pay government sector workers? No. Public sector workers are getting paid. It is true, there are challenges, we all agree. But what are the causes? Is it because the government has mismanaged the economy, or because we've had natural crisis in the world and it has affected us?
But you would agree with me, Honorable Ansah. Dr. Bawumia himself has said that the robustness of any economy can be tested in a time of crisis. We've had a crisis on our hands, and things have failed. Ghanaians are struggling. People do not eat 3 meals.
If the fundamentals are weak.
That's not what I'm saying. He said expressly that the robustness of any economy can be tested during a time of crisis. And now we've had a crisis, and things are difficult for Ghanaians. So would you say that Dr. Bawumia should admit that he has failed on the back of his own words, that the economy is not robust because of a crisis, which he says we can test the economy against?
That is true, and he's
so
always...
He has failed.
He hasn't failed, but the truth is that the robustness can be tested by that. But they were in the process of building a robust economy. We hadn't even finished our first term in office when these things we are talking about hit. It reversed all the gains that we had.
So in spite of the crisis,
yes,
which Dr. Bawumia says we need
yes,
in order to test the robustness of our economy.
yes. So would you say
you would
the
not,
economy of America and of UK are not robust?
These are, these are his words.
Yes, they all suffered what we are suffering. And
These are his words.
And they have all gone into economic recession.
Yes, but he says
yes.
Americans did not say that the robustness of their economy can be tested in a time of crisis. Dr. Bawumia said so.
But these are clear and true economic theories. And that is why when you have those challenges, it is hitting everybody differently. And so if the bigger economies are robust, and so the impact is manageable, is minimal, as opposed to those of us who are still struggling to come up. It makes those economic things he said, they are true.
So he has.
So they were true. He hasn't failed. He didn't say he has failed. That is your interpretation.
I'm asking a question.
He hasn't failed. No, he hasn't. What he said is true. It was true yesterday. It was true during the COVID and the crisis period, and it is true today.
What's your personal assessment of his role?
Of his role
as the head of the economic management team in the face of our present economic times? What's your personal assessment of his role?
He's done excellently well, given the role that he was given to play, and he played it very well. He laid it out clearly.
He says he's proud of the advice that he's given.
Yes.
And it is based on these advices, I suppose, that some major economic decisions were taken in the country.
Yes.
In spite of all these advices, which he is proud of, people cannot afford 3 square meals a day.
Yes.
Prices of goods and services keep going up.
Globally.
Times are hard.
Globally, everywhere.
Is this something to be proud of?
It is happening everywhere. It's not just in Ghana. Prices of goods are going up everywhere. Go to London, you have prices pre-COVID currently about 5 times what they were. Go to the US, 4 or 5 times the prices pre-COVID. So it is everywhere. This is not Bawumia's making.
So what does it mean
when he says
say that
he's proud of the advice that he's giving? For instance, earlier last year, late 2022, if you recollect, as we were approaching the Christmas, because of what we had with the NDC, we will not support e-levy thing earlier in the year, which resulted in major issues with the currency. Our CD was fluctuating up and down.
Yeah.
Fuel prices you had diesel almost at 24 cedis. It was Dr. Bawumia who advised that let us do this gold for oil and then gold for reserves policy with the Bank of Ghana. I remember at the time a lot of economists came out. It won't work. It will not do anything. It will not solve the problem. But by January, February, when the first oil that was bought with the gold came in, what did we see? The price of fuel and the depreciation of the currency have all stabilized since the beginning of the year last year, for about a year now. And the Bank of Ghana has only attributed what we have seen, in my view, to the gold for oil policy. And this was advised by, in fact, Dr. Bawumia made known this policy in Suhum. Yeah, he was attending the Ojura Festival in November in Suhum when he mentioned that he has advised government on this, and so if it is taken, this will be the effect. So he should be proud that when he gives advice and it is taken, we do see the impact of that advice on the economy.
Ghanaians are lamenting about the number of taxes which have been imposed on them in recent times. Is this, or was this advice from the economic management team, and is Dr. Bawumia proud of it?
I wouldn't know, but what I do know is that Dr. Bawumia shares the view that we need to restructure our tax system. And that is why in his speech, he has spoken about the need to revise the kind of tax system.
Is this a recent view, or has he always had this view?
Well, I wouldn't know, but I do know that he has said that in his speech. And I also do know that all of us, even the legislators, we've been lamenting over several years. I go to Parliament. I was in Parliament for 4 terms.
Yes, you were.
And every time I am paid, when I get my pay slip, I see that taxes have been deducted. However, when I'm going to file for my nomination with the Electoral Commission at every 4 years, I'm required to bring a tax clearance certificate. When I apply to the GRA for my TCC, then they will come with a bill. You owe taxes like this over the 4 years. I have no idea how I come to owe them. our tax system is so complex that lawyers, legislators, everybody is confused. They don't know what they are. That's why Dr.
And
Bawumia
why
says,
hasn't he, over the last 7 years, advised that our tax system be reviewed?
what I'm saying is I wouldn't know what advice he has given, whether it was accepted or not accepted. But the man is saying
a major pillar in his speech,
yes,
taxation.
and that is what.
And so, as a member of his campaign team, I would
Yes.
assume that as a major topic on his vision speech,
Yes.
you would know his position on taxes before his application
His
to become
position
flag
on
bearer and
taxes is what he has laid out for us.
But you don't know
vision.
his previous position.
I'm saying that his position on taxes is what he has laid out.
Presently.
Presently.
But let's
And
talk
that is-
about,
yes.
let's move on from the topic of taxation and talk about
Okay.
the National Cathedral, for example.
Okay.
What's his position
I didn't
on the
see
National
that in his,
Cathedral? Is he, that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah.
Is he going to continue, or because he didn't really?
But
talk
I don't know
about it?
whether they will finish the cathedral before he comes into office or not.
Okay.
Do you know that for a fact
So
that they will not finish?
If they do not finish it,
Yeah.
is it something that is it a project that he's looking to continue?
But we don't know whether they will finish or not. So
It's
that's
going to be
being
commissioned
highly.
next month.
It's going to be commissioned.
Yeah, we've heard
That to be
I stand to
commissioned.
corrected, that it's going to be commissioned in the month of
So
March.
the question will not even arise whether he will continue or not continue.
No, but it has at the moment.
Yes.
It has not been built.
Yes, but
He's looking to become president
yes,
at the end of this year.
yeah.
If the project has not been commissioned or built by the time he becomes president, is it one of the projects that he's passionate about completing?
I do
Because
know
it
that.
is one of the passion projects of this government, which he's vice president of.
Is it the government or the president? I saw you almost say the passion of the president.
This president, he's a
Yes.
vice president.
Yes.
And
But he's
it
not
is
the
a
president.
It's a project that his boss,
Yes.
the president, is very passionate about.
about.
Does he look to continue it?
I would not see the reason why the next government, be it Dr. Bawumia or Touchwood, maybe the PNC, wins the elections, they will refuse to continue projects that the previous governments have invested in.
Will he prioritize it?
Then probably they are the NDC
Would he prioritize
who
this project?
before left all these beautiful affordable houses project that we were doing. They come in and they decide we will not continue to finish those, but we'll go and start some other ones.
Is it a project he would prioritize?
So I would dare say that whatever project the current administration is undertaking in the national interest, whichever government succeeds the
So
Akufo-Addo
that's a yes.
administration will continue
All
those
right.
projects.
Who does he have in mind for vice president?
For vice president,
Yeah.
well, when we get to that,
But
Bridge
what
will
are some of
cross
the
it.
names that you're considering?
we haven't discussed that, but I do know there are quite a number of names out there.
Yeah, we've seen Apostle
To me,
Opokunyina.
Opokunyina,
Yes,
yeah.
we've seen his name floating on social
Okay.
media. Are you considering him?
We haven't, like I said, had any discussion concerning the running mate, but I've seen several other names as well. All of them stalwarts in the society, and any of them, I'm sure, will fit the bill. What I have heard His Excellency say is that he does need somebody who will properly complement him and be able to help him govern properly.
Okay, before we go, final word on the COVID levy, which is still on our books. He didn't particularly mention it. Is he looking to continue collecting the COVID levy, or is it one of the taxes that he would abolish?
Well, I wasn't in Parliament when they put in that levy, but in the case of levies, usually there is a sunset clause, which tend to give when the collection of such a levy will expire.
All
So
right.
I would
So
expect
you
that,
wouldn't know for now.
yes,
All
as
right.
Parliament itself was considering, somebody may have drawn their attention, because this is a very specific levy
Levy.
for some disaster that has befallen the nation. So you cannot
world.
continue levying the population in perpetuity. So I would expect that Parliament would have averted its mind to put in a sunset clause there. But if they did not, when Dr. Bawumia comes, I'm sure he will look at it and make the
He
necessary.
would abolish it.
I can't speak for him on that. You say he didn't mention
right.
on that.
Finally, are you convinced that
That-
Ghanaians are convinced, after listening to Dr. Bawumia, that they should make him president come December 7th?
I am convinced that if somebody had written Dr. Bawumia off or had written the MPP off before his speech on the 7th of February, now they are awake and think, I think I need to hear more from this man. At least the speech has done that. It has bring a new awakening to the Ghanaian that beyond the rhetorics and beyond the politics, there is a need to really listen to people. We've elected, the NDC elected their flag bearer when? Almost a year ago. And we are yet to hear him say anything concrete. All you hear about are rhetorics, and when I come, I'll do this. He says it somewhere that you can't even remember.
Is it that you don't believe in the 24-hour economy?
24-hour economy?
Yes.
What exactly is it?
An economy that runs for 24 hours.
How? How does it run? You mean if I want to buy medication, I should be able to find a pharmacy that's open 24 hours? Or if I want access to my money, I should have access to it 24 hours? Or if I need a supermarket, I should have access to one? Or shift workers should continue?
Do you believe in the 24-hour
All these things that I just mentioned, they're already happening 24/7. I have a factory.
So you believe in it?
We run 3 shifts, 24 hours.
Thank you so much.
They are running already in most instances.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's been great talking to you. I've been talking to Honorable Frederick Ansah, former Minority Chief Whip and a member of the Bawumia, Dr. Bawumia campaign team. You're watching TV3 Newsday. Stay tuned. When we come back, we'll bring you sports.